Have you ever stood in front of someone and you know exactly what you want to say in your head?
Oh, all the time.
You've studied the grammar, you know the vocabulary, maybe you've practiced the sentence in the shower like a dozen times. But when you open your mouth to actually speak,
Nothing.
nothing. You just hit a wall, a silent, invisible, paralyzing wall. The words just vanish, and you're left standing there feeling your face get hot.
That is the classic silent wall.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly it. It's that paralyzing feeling where anxiety completely, well, it just overrides ability.
No.
It's not that you don't know the answer.
Yeah.
It's that your brain has hit the emergency brake.
Exactly. And that is what we are taking a sledgehammer to today. We're doing a deep dive into the psychology of language learning, specifically English, though honestly, what we found applies to almost any skill where you feel, vulnerable.
It really does.
We've got a massive stack of sources today that we've combed through. We're looking at transcripts from the English Leap podcast, specifically their episodes on self-love and making life changes. We have educational breakdowns from the British Council, strategy guides from the IDP IELTS team, and some really honest, raw community advice from Reddit.
It's a great mix because we have the academic side, the teachers and the test makers, and then the in the trenches side from the learners themselves.
And the mission for this deep dive is specific. We are not here to tell you to memorize more irregular verbs or, buy a better dictionary.
Right.
We are looking for the psychological hacks and the practical micro actions that stop you from feeling like you're too late or left behind. We want to move you from that frozen anxiety to what the sources call alignment.
Which is so crucial because looking at the research, the barrier is rarely intellectual. It's almost always emotional. You look at something like the Michigan English test materials we have in the pile. They ask you to, say, describe a family meal or understand a lecture. And technically, you might know every single word in that prompt.
But the anxiety acts as a filter.
It's a filter that blocks those words from ever coming out.
It's the internal noise. It's just,
Yeah.
It's louder than the words you're trying to say.
Precisely. The Michigan examples show us the destination, confident communication in the workplace or university.
Mhm.
But the journey, that is so often blocked by how we talk to ourselves the moment we stumble.
So let's get into the heavy stuff first. The English Leap transcripts, they talk about something called the I'm late syndrome. And I think this hits home for a lot of people, and not just in language learning.
Oh, absolutely.
It's that panic when you look at a 20-year-old speaking fluent English, or you look at your peers who seem to have it all together, and you just think, I should have done this by 25 or 30. It's too late now. I missed the boat.
It is a very, very common form of cognitive distortion. In the field, we sometimes call this chapter compare syndrome.
Chapter compare syndrome. I like that. Break that down for us.
Okay, so imagine you're watching a long-running TV series. You are on episode 1 of your own journey.
Okay.
You're just meeting the characters, figuring out the plot, making a mess of
A
things.
total mess of things, yeah.
But then you look at someone else, maybe a colleague or an influencer on Instagram, and they're on episode 10, season 5.
And you're judging your raw footage against their season finale.
Exactly. You see their result, the fluency, the promotion, but you didn't see the 5 years of bad grammar. You didn't see the confusion, the rejected job applications, or the embarrassing mistakes.
You're comparing your beginning to their middle.
Right. And social media just throws gasoline on this fire, doesn't
Oh,
it?
for sure. Because nobody posts a video of themselves forgetting the word for umbrella and just staring blankly at a clerk.
No, they post the certificate, the new job, the vacation in London. Yeah. It's the highlight reel versus your behind the scenes. And the sources use a really powerful word to describe what happens to us when we do this. We become stagnant.
That stood out to me. They used a water analogy that was a bit gross, but really effective.
Yes. Think of a river versus a pond. Fresh water flows. It moves, it crashes over rocks, it makes noise, it creates friction. It's alive.
Right.
Stagnant water just sits still. It doesn't want to make a mistake, so it doesn't move. It pools in one place. And eventually, what happens to stagnant water?
It starts to smell, it gets murky.
It becomes toxic. If you feel late, or if you feel like you can't compete with those season 5 people, you tend to freeze. You stop studying because what's the point?
And that's when you actually fail.
That is when you fail. The goal, according to these sources, isn't to be a perfect waterfall immediately. It's just to start moving, to become a river again.
Even if it's just a trickle.
Even if it's a trickle. Movement keeps the water fresh. But to get that flow back, we have to look at the dam holding it back. And the English Leap transcripts point a finger directly at negative self-talk.
This brings us to the sorry habit. I read this section and I physically winced because I do this. It's not just apologizing for spilling coffee, it's apologizing for existing.
It's a preemptive strike.
Mm-hmm.
You start a sentence with, sorry, my English is bad, or sorry, can I just ask? You're trying to lower the other person's expectations so they can't judge you.
You think it's polite.
You think it's polite, but it's actually a defense mechanism.
But the source says this is actually backfiring.
It backfires completely. When you apologize for speaking or for asking a clarification question, you're signaling to your own brain, I am an inconvenience. I don't deserve this space. The source uses the term shrinking.
Shrinking. You're making yourself smaller. That's such a vivid image. So the actionable tip here is pretty blunt. Stop shrinking. If you make a mistake, correct it. If you spill soup, say sorry. But don't apologize for learning. Don't apologize for being a work in progress.
And this is where you have to swap your internal personnel. You need to fire your inner critic and hire an inner coach.
Okay, let's role play this. What's the difference in the script between the critic and the coach?
Okay, so let's say you use the wrong past tense verb in a meeting. The inner critic is a bully. It says, you always sound stupid. They're laughing at you. Why do you even try? You're never going to get this.
Ouch.
It attacks your identity.
Yeah, I've heard that voice. And the coach.
The coach looks at the exact same mistake, the wrong verb, and gets curious. The coach says, okay, that was interesting. We messed up the past perfect tense there. Why? Was it the speed? Did we not know the word? What is this chapter teaching us? Let's try that again.
It turns failure into data.
Exactly. It removes the emotion from the air. It treats a mistake like a puzzle to be solved, not a character flaw. And to protect that coach mindset, you need boundaries. The sources had a really interesting take on boundaries, describing them not as walls, but as doors.
I loved that distinction because a wall keeps everything out, the good and the bad. You just isolate yourself in a bunker.
Right. But a door has a handle. You decide when it opens and who comes in. And this is so crucial for language learners because you have to protect your energy from what the sources call energy vampires.
And this isn't just negative people, though. It applies to habits, too, specifically doom scrolling.
That is a massive energy leak. If you spend your evening scrolling through bad news or looking at those perfect lives we talked about, you are draining the battery you need for learning. You have to shut that door. Learning a language is cognitively expensive. It burns a lot of glucose. You can't waste that fuel on things that make you feel small.
It's about preserving your bandwidth. And speaking of bandwidth and confidence, we need to talk about validation. The sources made a really strong point here. Self-worth is not up for discussion.
This is the fragility trap. If your confidence relies entirely on external things, like a teacher saying good job or a native speaker understanding you perfectly every time you're fragile,
And the moment you hit a bump or someone looks at you funny,
you crash. So you have to believe you are enough before you get the result.
right.
You're enough while you are struggling.
Okay.
That belief is the foundation. If you have that, the mistakes don't shatter you. They just inform you. You aren't bad at English. You're just learning English.
Yeah.
The difference is huge.
Okay, so we've got the mindset. We're firing the critic. We're closing the door on doom scrolling. But we promise practical tactics. The sources, specifically the English Leap Notes, introduce this concept of the Power Day.
And I really appreciated this because Power Day sounds like something where you drink 6 energy drinks and study for 8 hours straight.
Right, it sounds intense, like a montage in a Rocky movie, but it's actually the opposite.
It's based on the math of consistency, not intensity. The source argues that you don't need to move to London or New York. You don't need 4 hours a day. You need 10 to 15 minutes.
Let's do the math on that, because 15 minutes sounds like nothing. It almost sounds like cheating.
It feels like nothing in the moment, but 15 minutes of focused, real engagement times 365 days. That is over 90 hours of deliberate practice. If you do that, you are a completely different person by 2027.
It's the compound interest of learning.
Exactly. Most people go for the boom and bust cycle. They study for 3 hours on Sunday, burn out, and don't look at it for 2 weeks.
Stagnant water.
That's stagnant water. The Power Day is about integrating English into the life you already have.
One specific tip I loved for this was setting the trap before you go to sleep.
Yes, environment design. Put your English book or your headphones or your journal right next to your bed, on top of your phone if you have to.
So when you wake up, the path of least resistance isn't Instagram or your work email. It's English.
You want to win the morning before your brain has a chance to argue with you. And this aligns with the concept of alignment from the source material. You want your micro actions, the tiny things you do, to move in the same direction as your big dream.
So if your dream is fluency, but your first action of the day is reading gossip in your native language, you're misaligned.
Precisely. And these actions can be tiny. The sources call them micro actions. You don't have to write an essay. Just send one text message in English. Watch one YouTube short. Write one sentence in a journal.
It lowers the barrier to entry. I think that's why we think we have to do a big study session. Fear screams when you try to do something huge, but fear's pretty quiet when you just say, I'm going to write one sentence.
And what if you miss a day? Because life happens.
The bounce back?
The bounce back. The source had a great quote, "Survival is success." If you have a terrible week at work or you get sick and you miss your power day, you aren't broken. You don't quit.
You just get back on track.
You just bounce back. You get back on the track the next day. You don't spiral into shame. You just resume.
So we have the schedule, 15 minutes a day. Now, what are we actually doing in those 15 minutes? Because the IDP and Reddit sources gave us a goldmine of tools here.
They really did. And the headline here is immersion, but not the scary kind where you're drowning. Immersion through podcasts is the ultimate tool because it reclaims dead time.
Commuting, washing dishes, walking the dog, folding laundry.
Exactly. You're injecting the language into your ears without taking extra time out of your day. And the list of recommendations was fantastic because it covered every level.
Yeah, let's run through a few of those because I think finding the right vibe is important. If you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, they suggested coffee break English.
Right. That's for the slower pace.
That's
like a warm bath, very manageable, short 15-minute bites. You don't get lost. It's designed to be comfortable.
Then if you want a bit of personality and maybe you want to learn British slang, they mentioned Luke's English podcast.
Luke is great because he's a comedian as well as a teacher, so you're laughing, which actually helps with memory retention.
Oh, that's interesting.
If you're enjoying the content, your brain tags it as important. If you're bored, your brain just deletes it.
And for the people who are really busy...
6-minute English from the BBC. It's exactly what it says on the tin. Short, punchy, high-quality production. Perfect for a quick coffee break.
Now, for the advanced listeners, the ones who want to really push their boundaries, they suggested The Daily from the New York Times.
That is the deep end of the pool.
Yeah.
That is journalistic speed, complex topics, different accents, background noise. If you can follow that, you are doing very, very well.
But don't start there.
Don't start there if you're a beginner, or you'll hit that silent wall again.
But it's not just about passive listening. There was a game mentioned in the British Council materials, the one with Ravi and Davis, that I thought was so fun, the airport game.
This is active naming. The idea is simple. You're in a location, let's say an airport, since that's the example. You look around, and instead of just seeing stuff, you force yourself to name everything in English.
So you're standing there waiting for a flight. You see the departure board. You see the trolley, aisle seat, runway.
Conveyor belt, customs officer. It forces your brain to retrieve vocabulary in real time and connect it to a physical object. It anchors the word in reality.
And you can do this anywhere. The supermarket is a great one. Zucchini, detergent, checkout lane.
It turns the world into your classroom. And you don't need a teacher for it. You just need your eyes and your brain. And if you don't know the word,
look it up.
Look it up immediately. That gap in your knowledge is the best place to learn.
Speaking of the British Council, they also had some really specific grammar nuggets that link back to our psychology discussion. They had a whole section on the difference between very and to.
This is a subtle nuance that trips up so many learners. We often use them interchangeably, but emotionally they are opposites.
Right. Tom, the teacher, explained this. Very is an intensifier. It makes something stronger, but it can be positive or neutral.
Exactly. If I say, this house is very small, that might mean it's cozy. It's a cute, tiny house. It's a fact, but not necessarily a bad one.
Right.
But to implies a negative excess. It means there is a problem.
This house is too small.
It means I cannot live here. It is insufficient. It implies the consequence I need to move.
That's a huge difference. If you say the coffee is very hot, you might be happy. If you say the coffee is too hot, you burned your tongue.
Understanding that distinction builds confidence because you know you are expressing exactly how you feel. You aren't just translating words, you are translating emotion. And getting your emotion across correctly is what makes you feel understood.
Another tool for managing that emotion, specifically anxiety, came from Samina in the British Council source. She talked about meditation and mantras.
Which might seem a bit woo-woo or out of place in a language discussion, but it's scientifically valid. Language anxiety triggers a physical fight-or-flight response. Your heart races, your palms sweat, your cortisol
The
spikes.
silent wall going up.
Exactly. The brain thinks you are in danger, so it shuts down the language centers to focus on survival. Samina suggests using a mantra, a repeated phrase, to center yourself. It creates a pause button.
So instead of spiraling and thinking, oh no, I'm going to forget the word for conveyor belt and everyone will laugh at me, you just breathe.
You breathe and repeat, I am here, I am trying, or I am enough. It just quiets the noise so the language center of your brain can actually work again. It reboots the system.
Okay, so we've prepped the mind, we've practiced our vocab in the supermarket, we've listened to the podcast. Now comes the boss battle, social interaction.
Walking up to a stranger.
It's terrifying, but the British Council sourced the dialogue between Tess and Ravi had this structure for asking for advice or help that I thought was brilliant. It's basically a script.
It's a three-step template. And the beauty of a template is that you don't have to think about what to say next. It lowers the cognitive load. You just fill in the blanks.
Let's break it down. Step 1.
Step 1. Book the conversation space. You don't just barge in. You ask for permission. Got a sec. Or do you have a minute?
I love got a sec. It's so casual. It takes the pressure off immediately. You aren't demanding a meeting, you're just asking for a second.
Exactly. Step 2. Establish common ground. You validate the other person. You know about computers, or you've been to Italy, or you're good at project management.
This is smart because it makes the other person feel good. You're acknowledging they are an expert. It warms them up.
And then step 3, state the problem clearly. I'm having trouble with this spreadsheet, or I don't know where to eat in Rome.
So the whole thing flows like, hey, got a sec, you know about specialized coffee. I'm looking for a gift for my dad.
Perfect. It works for everything. And if you are an anxious learner having that got a sec, you know about X, I need help with Y, template is a safety net. You know exactly where the conversation is going.
Right, you don't have to freestyle the opening. And you can practice that in the shower. You don't even need a partner to rehearse the got a sec part.
And that brings us back to the core idea of this deep dive. The silent wall is built of fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of looking foolish. These templates, these micro actions, the podcasts, they are all just pickaxes chipping away at that wall.
We've covered a huge amount of ground today. We talked about beating the I'm late syndrome by realizing that everyone is on a different chapter. Don't compare your episode 1 to their episode 10.
We discussed firing the inner critic and hiring the coach, swapping the sorry habit for healthy boundaries.
We did the math on the power day.
Here-
15 minutes keeps you from being stagnant water. And we filled the toolkit with Luke's English podcast, the airport game, and the got a sec templates.
It is a comprehensive strategy. But I want to circle back to one final thought from the sources that I found really beautiful. It's about the seasons of life.
The winter and spring analogy. This is from the English Leap transcript on changing your life.
Yes. It says that change is inevitable. Winter doesn't ask permission to come, and neither does spring.
That's profound. Time is going to pass anyway.
Exactly. 2027 is coming whether you study English or not. The potential is described as a seed inside you. It is there, waiting. The question is not whether you can change, but whether you will work with the change or against it.
That really hit home for me. You can't stop the seasons, but you can decide if you're going to plant something.
Precisely. Winter will pass. Will you emerge with new growth, or will you be exactly where you were?
So here is the challenge for you listening right now. The ball is in your court. That's a phrase from the sources. It means it's your turn. You don't need to overhaul your entire life today.
Just take one step, one micro action, identify one podcast from the list we mentioned, and subscribe to it right now. Or write one sentence about your day in a notebook.
Or simply catch yourself the next time you're about to say sorry for your English and just stop. Smile instead.
Just 1%. That's all it takes to start the river flowing again.
And remember, showing up for yourself, even in a small way, is the biggest victory you can have.
It really is.
Thanks for showing up for yourself today by listening to this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
Goodbye.